Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. I've done a number of tests of different types of optics and how they affect practical accuracy. And I think at this point it's fair to conclude that there's a direct correlation between the maximum magnification of an optic and the maximum practical accuracy that can be obtained from a firearm with that optic mounted on it. So a regular scope that goes up to 9 power is going to give you better practical accuracy, other things being equal, than, say, a scout scope that only goes up to 7 power, which is still going to give you more practical accuracy than an LPVO that only goes up to 4 power, which is still going to give you significantly more long-range precision than an unmagnified red dot. And intuitively, it seems reasonable to hypothesize that there would also be an inverse correlation between the magnification of the optic and the speed of target acquisition at close quarters. So, for relatively large targets at relatively close range, I would expect an unmagnified red dot to be the fastest, closely followed by an LPVO, which by definition goes all the way down to 1x. Followed by something like a scout scope that goes down to 2x, followed by a regular scope that goes down to 4x. However, my testing to date on target acquisition speed for these different types of optics has been a little bit inconclusive. So today I want to set up a better test of shooting speed for these different options. And to do that, I've set up a course consisting of 12 targets out in my shooting trenches, all at ranges that are close enough that magnification shouldn't provide any meaningful advantage. But with enough targets, enough moving between targets, enough transitions between targets, that target acquisition speed should be a significant factor in how long it takes to complete the course. So without further ado, let's head out to the trenches and see how these different optical sighting options fare. I'm actually going to start off by running the course a few times with this .22 rimfire rifle, which, as you can see, just has open sights. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I figure that any course I set up is going to have a little bit of a learning curve, and I don't want the learning curve to skew the results that I get when I run it with the different 223s that have the different sighting options. So this gives me a chance to practice the course a few times without spending quite as much on ammunition. Then, too, I think this will give us a useful baseline for what kind of time we can expect from a rifle with open sights. And just for the record, I am changing the rules a little bit for the .22 here. Specifically, the targets that I'm using are going to fall over on any solid hit from a 223. So when I run the course with a 223, I have to knock the targets over. With the .22, they're not necessarily going to fall over from any solid hit. They may not. So as long as the target wobbles enough that I can tell that I hit it, I'm going to count that as a hit for the .22. Now let's try just a basic standard red dot on a basic standard AR-15. I would expect this to be the fastest sight for this course, but we'll see. Now let's jump to the other end of the spectrum and see what I can do with a traditional scope. Now let's give the scout scope a try. And last but not least, let's try an LPVO, which, as you can see, I've got mounted on this AR pistol. Well, as you saw, the LPVO actually came in slower than the scout scope, but we kind of introduced an additional variable by running the LPVO on a pistol as opposed to a rifle or carbine. So that begs the question of whether maybe it's the pistol that came in slower, perhaps because I just haven't had it as long and I'm not as proficient with it. So to round out our testing, I think we need to assess whether the pistol is slower by running it with the scout scope. Well, with the scout scope on the pistol, I was actually able to complete the course 0.2 seconds faster than when I had the scout scope on a carbine. So I think we can rule out the possibility that it was the pistol that slowed me down for the LPVO run. So I think there's a number of conclusions that we can draw from this test. First and foremost, the sights that you're using do not have a huge impact on your overall speed. I mean, this course, regardless of which sights I was using, took me about 30 seconds to run. And the difference in time between the red dot, which was the fastest, and the regular scope, which was the slowest, was less than 3 seconds. There were a total of 12 targets in the course. So the actual difference in target acquisition speed per target was less than 1/10 of a second, even between the fastest and slowest sights. Now, you put that together with our observation from previous testing that having a magnified optic does significantly increase the range at which you can hope to engage targets of a given size. And I think it's fair to say that a traditional magnified scope is probably the best general purpose sight for most general purpose rifles, carbines, and even some handguns. That said, I think you can also advance the counter-argument that there are situations where fractions of a second can be very significant. You know, if you've got the best time by 1/10 of a second in a shooting match, that might be the difference between first place or second. Similarly, you don't want to come out second best in a close quarters combat situation. So, if you're concerned about fractions of a second, and you're not so concerned about long-range precision, then it would seem like a red dot might be the clear choice for optics on a tactical firearm. And I think we got a bit of a breeze coming up, so let's take the camera inside to finish discussing our results and conclusions. But what if you're selecting optics for a gun that you might need to depend on in a situation where fractions of a second matter, and that you might need to depend on in a situation where long-range precision matters? In that case, the two options that provide a compromise between a regular scope and a red dot are the LPVO and the scout scope. And based on the testing that we've done today, it seems like the scout scope offers a little bit faster target acquisition than the LPVO, while based on previous testing that I've done, it seems like the scout scope also offers a little bit better long-range precision than the LPVO. So the scout scope seems to be the superior compromise on both accounts. Now, of the options that I've tested, the scout scope is also by far the most different and therefore the most difficult to transition to or to get used to using. It's pretty easy to transition from a red dot to an LPVO to a regular scope or vice versa. The scout scope just has a different feel to it. Whether you want to call that optical ergonomics or whatever, it really almost seems more like an iron sight than it does like a scope. You bring it up on target, and it's kind of like you got this great big front bead sight out there with a magnified window in it. Honestly, for me, the scout scope still feels a little bit weird. And yet, in spite of that feeling, I've been able to shoot it faster and more precisely than the LPVO. So if I'm still on the learning curve with the scout scope, more so than on my other optics, that would imply that its advantages are probably even greater than what we've been able to see in my testing with it to date. So maybe the takeaway for me personally is that I need to practice more with the scout scope, if I could afford the ammunition to practice more with anything. But anyway, I hope you found this experiment as interesting as I did, and until next time, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.